let's journey to the most remote, most mysterious, and, believe it or not, one of the most important places on our entire planet. It's a place so isolated its story doesn't start with a map. It actually starts with a sound. It all kicks off right here. Back in 1977, underwater microphones picked up this incredibly powerful, super low-frequency sound. Now, here's the really weird part. Two separate sets of sensors, over 5,000 kilometers apart, they recorded the exact same noise at the exact same time. The source was traced to the most remote corner of the South Pacific, and it got a nickname, the bloop.
So you gotta wonder, what could possibly make a sound that loud, that powerful? For years, people's imaginations just went wild. I mean, the sound signature didn't match any known man-made object or geological event, which led a lot of folks to a pretty thrilling, if kind of terrifying conclusion. It had to be some kind of gigantic, undiscovered sea creature, something bigger than anything we've ever even imagined. So, after decades of all this chatter about sea monsters, an official explanation finally came out in 2012. Turns out, it was supposedly the sound of a massive iceberg cracking apart. Case closed, right? Well, not for everyone. To this day, the debate is still going, which just adds to the whole mystique of the place where the sound came from. So, where did the sound come from? The origin point of the bloop is quite literally the most remote place on Earth. It has this very official-sounding title, the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility. But honestly, everyone knows it by its much cooler nickname, Point Nemo. And the name really says it all. Nemo is Latin for no one, which is just perfect for a place that's defined by its complete and utter emptiness. This is the one spot in all of the world's oceans that is the absolute farthest you can possibly get from any piece of dry land. And just how far are we talking here? Well, to get to the closest bit of land, a lonely stretch of Antarctica, you'd have to travel 2,688 kilometers. I mean, that's more than the distance from London to Moscow. You are, quite literally, in the middle of nowhere. This incredible isolation leads to one of my favorite facts. Get this. The closest human beings to someone at Point Nemo are not on any continent. Most of the time, they are the astronauts orbiting 400 kilometers directly above their heads on the International Space Station. How wild is that? You know, you might think a place this remote would be teeming with all sorts of unique life, but it's the exact opposite. It's basically a marine desert. The water is almost 4,000 meters deep, so no sunlight gets down there. It's also trapped inside this giant rotating current called a gyre, which acts like a massive wall, stopping any nutrient-rich water from getting in. No nutrients, no life. It's so empty that if you needed a rescue out here, it could take 2 weeks by boat. So, okay, we've got this vast, lifeless, incredibly remote patch of ocean. What on earth could humanity possibly use it for? Well, it turns out that its greatest weakness, its total isolation, is also its greatest strength. We've turned it into our designated cosmic cemetery. This new life for Point Nemo began in 1992, when an engineer finally calculated its exact coordinates. But its first famous resident didn't show up until 2001, when Russia's legendary Mir space station was guided here for its final, fiery plunge. Ever since then, it's become the go-to spot for space agencies around the world, and today, the seafloor down there is littered with the remains of over 260 spacecraft. So why Point Nemo? Well, the logistics are just perfect. It's in international waters, so no single country owns it, and that means space agencies don't have to deal with complicated international treaties or ask anyone for permission to drop their old multi-ton satellites there. It's a total legal and logistical no-man's land. Now, this might make you wonder, why go to all this trouble? Why intentionally destroy these incredibly expensive machines? The answer is pretty simple, because the alternative is so much worse. A controlled crash is always better than an uncontrolled one. Just think about this chilling example from 1978. A Soviet spy satellite, Cosmos 954, went rogue. The big problem? It was powered by a nuclear reactor. When it finally fell out of orbit, it broke apart, scattering radioactive debris across a huge part of northern Canada. It was a terrifying wake-up call for the entire planet. And if a radioactive satellite isn't scary enough for you, just listen to the story of Lottie Williams. In 1997, she was just walking through a park in Oklahoma when she felt this little tap on her shoulder. It turned out to be a small piece of a Delta II rocket that had just re-entered the atmosphere. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, but she is the only person in history known to have actually been hit by falling space junk.
Her story really brings home the very real danger of this stuff just falling wherever. So to avoid another Cosmos 954 or, a more serious Lottie Williams incident, we need Point Nemo. But think about this. How do you hit a specific target in the ocean from hundreds of kilometers up in space, all while traveling at thousands of kilometers per hour? It is an absolutely incredible feat of engineering. The whole process is amazingly precise. First, engineers use the craft's last bit of fuel to just nudge it out of its stable orbit. Then, after months of slowly falling toward Earth, a final, perfectly calculated engine burn aims it right at Point Nemo. As it hits the atmosphere, traveling at insane speeds, it just becomes this massive fireball. Most of it burns up, and any pieces that survive splash down harmlessly, far, far away from anyone.
And get ready, because Point Nemo's biggest resident is still on its way. The International Space Station, a symbol of global cooperation and one of humanity's greatest achievements, has an expiration date. Sometime after 2030, it too will be guided out of orbit and take its final fiery plunge to join the other titans of the space age at the bottom of the world. So, there you have it. We've turned the loneliest place on Earth into a solution for one of our most modern problems. We know what we've put on the seabed down there, but it really makes you wonder, what else is down there? What was really making that strange, powerful sound back in 1977? We may have filled it with our own history, but what secrets does Point Nemo still keep?